Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sound Mind podcast, where we dive into the fascinating world of music psychology. I'm your host, Sophia, and as a music psychologist, I'll be guiding you through everything you've ever wondered about music. So, whether you're a music lover or just interested in the science of sound, you're in the right place, so stick with us. Today, I want to talk about something that I feel like honestly just gets me through life. Concerts. We all love them, right? Just live music in general. I think there's something so special about it. Have you ever felt goosebumps down your spine at a concert or found yourself unexpectedly crying during a live performance? If so, you're definitely not alone. And today we're diving into exactly why those moments feel so powerful. In this episode, we'll explore how live music doesn't just sound amazing, but it literally shapes our brains, stirs our emotions, and brings us closer together as humans. From the science behind spine-tingling chills to the magic of singing in a crowd, I want to unpack the psychology that makes live music one of the most, honestly, profound experiences that I think we can have as humans. So whether you're a seasoned concert goer or you're just curious about what makes live shows so unforgettable, stick around for this one. Oh, and not to mention that this might just be the justification that you need to buy those concert tickets that you're thinking about. I'm just saying. Now, like I said, there's something almost magical about being at a live music event. Whether you're front row at a stadium concert, in a smoky jazz bar, or even just watching someone perform at an open mic, I think the energy is just undeniably different. But why does live music feel so powerful compared to just hitting play on your favorite playlist? Well, actually, there's a lot of science behind that. So, live music is inherently more dynamic than recorded music. When you're at a concert, what you're experiencing is real-time musical expression. Unlike a studio track, which has been meticulously mixed, mastered, polished, and almost like frozen in time, live music is full of spontaneous moments. Musicians might improvise, change the tempo, extend a chorus, or just respond to the mood of the audience. And it's that unpredictability that keeps our brains alert. Studies show that when we encounter variation in a known piece of music, especially when we don't expect it, our brain's reward systems just light up, particularly in areas linked to dopamine release. And this unpredictability contributes to a heightened emotional arousal, which basically helps explain why a song that you've heard hundreds of times might suddenly give you goosebumps when it's performed live. And there's something also deeply social about live music, and I think that's incredible. When we watch a band or artist perform, actually something called our mirror neuron systems, which are the parts of the brain involved in empathy and imitation, they really start firing up. Essentially, when we see a singer throw their whole body into a performance or a drummer lose themselves in the rhythm, we're not just seeing it, we feel it. This embodied simulation, it helps us connect with the performer on a deeply human level, and it creates this sense of intimacy, even among strangers in a crowd. And then there's the crowd itself. One of the most fascinating parts of live music is how it brings people into synchrony. Now, I do want to get into this in more detail a bit later in the episode, but think of how a stadium literally pulses in unison when a beat drops, or how a small audience starts clapping or swaying together. And this is where the concept of musical entrainment comes in. Entrainment is our brain and body's ability to sync up with a rhythm. But in live settings, it's not just about syncing with the beat, it's literally about syncing with each other. Research actually shows that when people move in time together, it boosts feelings of social bonding and cooperation. We actually start to like each other more just by moving in sync. And oxytocin, which is the so-called bonding hormone, gets released during moments of group synchrony like this. And this helps to create that collective euphoria that we often feel at gigs or festivals. But even just hearing live music without moving can also evoke strong physiological responses. Heart rates rise, skin conductance even changes, and some studies actually show that cortisol levels drop, suggesting that live music can really help to reduce stress. And believe me, if you've ever cried at a concert, you're 100% not alone. Music psychologists have found that the combination of heightened emotion, social connection, and sensory immersion in live music settings can easily tip us into what's known as peak emotional experience. And these are the kind of moments that people often describe as transcendent or even spiritual. They're rare, but they're incredibly powerful. And you can just picture that moment in a concert where the music just swells, the lights shift, and the singer might hold a note just a little bit longer than expected, and suddenly you just feel a chill ripple down your spine or tears start to well up in your eyes. And that's not just you being emotional, that's literally your brain and body reacting to something profoundly human, something that we call aesthetic chills or frisson. Now, I actually did a whole episode on goosebumps or frisson, which I think was episode 10, but essentially, frisson is a physical reaction to music marked by goosebumps, shivers, or tears, and it's been studied super extensively as one of the most intense emotional responses that we can have to music. Researchers found that these chills often happen when there's an unexpected change in the music, like a sudden harmony shift, a vocal peak, or a key change. And these are moments that play with our expectations. In live performances, they're even more potent because of the added elements of unpredictability, visual stimulation, and shared emotion with others in the audience. In a recorded song, you know what's coming next. Even if you love it, it's familiar. But in a live setting, the same song might stretch a little bit longer, build more slowly, or feature an improvised vocal run or guitar solo that maybe catches you completely off guard. And that unpredictability, which is what researchers call expectancy violation, is one of the core triggers for goosebumps. Our brains are constantly predicting what will come next, and when those predictions are disrupted, we get this reward hit, often in the form of dopamine. And that sudden surge of neurochemical pleasure is what causes the kind of hair-raising feelings, or even brings us to tears. It's so interesting, but one of the most fascinating things to me, and I think one of the most beautiful parts of being human, is that there's also the social context. Crying or getting chills isn't just about what you're hearing, it's also about who you're hearing it with. Being in a crowd, surrounded by people all experiencing the same powerful sound waves, it can create a kind of emotional resonance. Those mirror neurons that I mentioned earlier, research suggests that seeing other people's emotional reactions can actually amplify our own. So if someone near you is crying during a ballad, or you hear a collective cheer during a chorus, your emotional system is likely to mirror and magnify that moment. And oxytocin also plays a role here because it increases during shared emotional experiences, helping you feel more connected to those around you and increasing the likelihood of picking up those emotions. And interestingly, research has shown that people who are more empathetic tend to get chills or cry more often during music. And this is something that I dug into a little bit in my episode that I did on goosebumps. But one study actually found that people who report higher levels of trait empathy were significantly more likely to experience music-induced frisson. In a live setting where empathy and emotional contagion are dialed up, this reaction becomes even more likely. Live music really has a power to just cut through your defenses and shake up your expectations, just delivering an emotional experience that's honestly impossible to replicate anywhere else. I'm one of those people that loves to watch live performance videos at home, whether that's connected to my speaker or not, it doesn't hit the same. Of course, it's an experience and it's great to hear songs being performed live. And of course, you still experience some of that kind of musical expectancy. But yeah, I mean, nothing compares to being in a crowd, being in an arena, or even just a small bar and hearing the kind of quaint parts of live music. It isn't perfect and it's not supposed to be. And I think that's what makes it so raw and so emotional. And of course, I don't want to forget the role of nostalgia. I think when your favorite artist plays a song that you associate with maybe a specific memory or time in your life, the emotional impact is amplified in a live setting. You're not just recalling the memory, you're reliving it, surrounded by others who might actually be having their own version of the same emotional flashback. But what's really fascinating to me is that the brain actually changes when we experience live music. The dopamine release, emotional arousal, synchronized neural activity, it doesn't just feel amazing in the moment. It actually has real measurable effects on our health. So this is actually one of the most interesting parts of this kind of research. And basically, research says that attending concerts can significantly lower levels of stress, like cortisol, it reduces blood pressure, and even strengthen your immune system. And on the mental health side, live music has been linked to elevated mood, reduced symptoms of anxiety and depression, and increased feelings of relaxation and emotional well-being. But this is pretty amazing. One study actually found that regular concert attendance can actually extend your life. Yep, that's true. Concerts could actually make you live longer. I know, as if you needed another reason to buy those concert tickets. But essentially, the findings are backed by bespoke psychometric and heart rate tests, which were carried out across a range of different well-being activities like gig going, yoga, and dog walking. And among them, live music actually came out on top. The gig experience led to a 21% increase in participants' overall feelings of well-being. And key indicators like self-worth and closeness to others both rose by 25%, while mental stimulation skyrocketed by an impressive 75%. And yeah, it's maybe good or bad news, but those who attend live music events regularly, like fortnightly, they may experience a boost in lifespan by up to 9 years. It's wild. It's wild, right? And your bank account is probably not going to thank me for this, but your mental health definitely will. And part of this actually does come from the pure joy and emotional release that music brings, but a big piece of it is social. Singing, dancing, or just being in a crowd all activates areas of the brain linked to social bonding and shared pleasure. So when you're at a live show, lost in the music with hundreds or thousands of other people, you're not just having a good time, you're actively supporting your mental and physical health, and maybe even adding a few extra years to your life. So, in short, live music isn't just louder or more exciting. It's a fundamentally different psychological experience. It taps into systems of reward, empathy, movement, memory, and emotion in ways that recorded music simply can't replicate. And that doesn't mean that recorded music isn't meaningful. Of course it is. We know that, especially here. But live music, it adds these additional layers of spontaneity, vulnerability, connection, and this kind of co-presence. I think it's really a way to remind us that music is, at its core, a shared human experience. So, on that note, I want to talk about one of the most powerful things that happens at live music events, and that is the social magic. It's something that goes way beyond the artist on stage or the set list, and it's linked to the well-being effects that we just discussed, because while the music itself may be the headline act, what really elevates a concert into something unforgettable, honestly, I think is the energy of the crowd. It's the shared emotion, the feeling that just for a little while, you're part of something much bigger than yourself. Have you ever been at a gig where mid-song you just look around you and you saw strangers singing the exact same lyric as you with the exact same intensity as you? Maybe you locked eyes with someone that you've never met, both of you mouthing the words to a song that means something personal, and suddenly you weren't just a listener. You were part of this collective moment. Or maybe you found yourself swaying in rhythm with hundreds or even thousands of people just moving together like a single body. And honestly, it's so powerful. When we engage with music in groups, especially in emotionally charged environments like concerts or festivals, something incredible happens in our brains and bodies. So, like I said, research has shown that shared musical experiences, they lead to social bonding, which is this sense of closeness and connection with others, even those that we've never met before. And this isn't actually just metaphorical. Studies that have used tools like fMRI scans and EEG, they show that people's brainwaves can actually synchronize when they listen to music together. Our neural oscillations, which are the rhythmic patterns of brain activity, they literally begin to align with each other. It's actually incredible. So in a real measurable sense, we're on the same wavelength. And this ties into something that I mentioned earlier, rhythmic entrainment. It's our brain and body's ability to sync up with an internal rhythm. But in a live setting, it doesn't just stop at the beat. Like I said, your brainwaves align, but our heart rates also begin to align. Even our breathing patterns sync. Even our emotional states can converge. We're wired to attune ourselves to the people and sounds around us, and music gives us the perfect framework for that kind of synchrony to take place. And when that happens, when hundreds or thousands of people are entrained to the same rhythm, that's when we get to something known as collective effervescence. And this term comes from French sociologist Émilie Durkheim, who used it to describe the surge of emotional energy that arises during shared rituals. Think religious ceremonies, political rallies, sports games, and concerts. These aren't just social gatherings, they're emotionally charged events where individual identities temporarily dissolve into something collective. You feel everything together. And you can probably recollect moments like this, that rush when the whole crowd just starts singing together in unison, or when everyone raises their hands during a drop, or even when silence falls. And actually, one moment that always sticks with me from concerts are those times where we switch on our phone flashlights and you see a whole arena lit up with lights. And in those moments, the boundary between self and other, it really becomes blurred. The music and the experience becomes a kind of emotional glue, just binding everyone together. Musicologist Thomas Turino talks about this in his work on participatory music cultures. He actually coined the term participatory discrepancies, and this describes those tiny timing imperfections. So think about maybe when the claps aren't perfectly in sync, or the crowd sings just a little ahead or behind the beat. But rather than ruining the experience, those discrepancies actually enhance it. They signal real, messy human involvement. They make it feel authentic, and they give us this sense of co-creation. Like we're not just consuming music, but we're actually helping bring it to life. And it turns out that this kind of connection has long-lasting effects. One study found that people who attend live music events report feeling significantly closer to other people, including total strangers. And the researchers described it as a kind of communal joy, a kind of emotionally fueled social closeness that arises from having a shared musical experience. Even a brief moment like dancing next to someone at a festival set or exchanging a look during a ballad, it can foster a sense of trust, empathy, and a sense of belonging. And I think in this post-pandemic world, we've especially felt the weight of that. I think after having all of those years of cancelled shows, live streams, and being isolated behind screens, we were really collectively starved for real connection, and all of us can relate to that. We were socially distanced. We couldn't have that unpredictable, messy joy of a live crowd. It was something that we all really missed out on. And actually, a survey that was done in 2022 by a music wellness app called Endel found that over 70% of people said that attending live music events after COVID made them feel more emotionally connected, more alive, and more present. And I think that's huge. It's as if collectively we remembered just how much we need music. not just as entertainment, but as a tool for reconnection with other people, but also ourselves. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about hearing your favorite song, it's about feeling it literally in your chest alongside a crowd of people who understand exactly what it means. It's not about shouting the lyrics because they sound good, but because they've been you, and hearing everyone else shout them too with you. That's when you realize that you're not alone. I think it's all about dancing with strangers, crying in a crowd, laughing in between songs, or just standing in silence during an encore. It's all about those unspoken gestures. And these moments don't always get recorded. They're not on the set list, but it's what makes live music so unforgettable. And maybe more than anything else, that's the true power of a concert. It reminds us that even in a world where arguably we're more disconnected than ever, we can still find each other through rhythm and through sound that brings ourselves into sync. Now, I want to talk about something that every concert goer knows: the power of anticipation. That feeling when you're just waiting for that one song, the one song that maybe soundtracked your summer, a breakup, or just a random day of the week where everything just feels good. And when it finally comes, when the lights drop, you hear the first note and the crowd just collectively loses it. That moment hits so much harder because of the wait. And this isn't just a nice emotional payoff, there's really psychology behind it. Now, I spoke earlier about musical expectation when it violates our expectations, but what about anticipation and actually hearing what we want to hear? So anticipation, it activates the brain's dopaminergic reward system, which is actually where dopamine is released. Not just when we hear pleasurable music, but actually in the seconds before the musical climax, meaning that the anticipation itself is chemically rewarding. And in a live setting, this effect can be even more amplified. You're not only anticipating the song, you're sharing that anticipation with hundreds or even thousands of people. It's like almost a collective craving, and it's like a collective high when it's fulfilled. And this is why artists spend so much time carefully crafting their set lists. It's not random at all. It's not just playing their hits. It's more like emotional architecture. A really good set list, it manipulates the flow of energy. It builds tension, releases it, creates lulls for recovery, and then ramps back up to a euphoric finale. And there's actually a technique called energy contouring, which is used in both DJing and live performance planning, which essentially maps out emotional highs and lows to ensure an optimal experience for the audience. It actually mirrors narrative theory in many ways. So think about the beginning of a show or a concert. It often hooks you in with familiarity, a recognizable hit, a signature sound. The middle might experiment a little bit more with slower tracks or deeper cuts. And the final act is where everything culminates, often saving the most iconic songs for last. And that's psychological build-up. It harnesses recency effects, which is where we remember the final moments more vividly. And if you've ever left a show glowing, like actually feeling like you're floating on air, which is literally me every time I leave a concert, it's partly because of this pacing. A well-designed set list guides your psychological arousal, your heart rate, your adrenaline, your endorphins. And by the end of it, you've been on this emotional journey, one that's carefully curated but still leaves room for surprise. Maybe an unexpected cover, an extended version, or a stripped-down acoustic bridge. That emotional roller coaster, which is led by anticipation and release, is part of what makes live music so unforgettable. Like I said, it's why you might cry when the beat drops, why you might scream when your favorite artist pauses just before singing the hook. That split second of delay is everything. Your brain loves patterns, but it actually lives for disruptions to them. It's like a perfect storm of expectation, timing, and connection. And it all starts with knowing that the song is coming, but just not quite yet. Interestingly, knowing the structure doesn't always ruin the experience. In fact, for some people, it makes it even better. I'll admit, I am actually one of those people who loves to look up the set list before a concert. I know some people think that it kills the surprise, but honestly, for me, it builds excitement. I start imagining how the show is going to flow, where my favorite songs are going to be, and when to expect the big moments. I see it as like watching the trailer before seeing a movie. It doesn't take away the magic, it just adds another layer of emotional preparation. And when that one track finally hits, it still gives me chills. I live for it, honestly. Now, I want to talk about something really special. How concerts can become some of the most precious memories that we carry with us. Have you ever noticed how certain concerts just seem to carve themselves into your memory so deeply that even years later, you can still recall exactly where you were standing, what song was playing, maybe even what you were wearing and who you were with? It's almost like a mental time capsule. And here's the thing, the vivid recall isn't just nostalgia, there's solid psychology behind it. So when we think about memory, one of the strongest types is called episodic memory. And this is the part of our brain that helps us remember specific events or experiences. And it's what lets you mentally relive a moment in such rich sensory detail. And what makes episodic memory stick? Well, usually it's when the experience has high emotional intensity, when it's novel or surprising, and when it involves a lot of sensory stimulation. And well, concerts hit all of those marks, 100%. And think about it, even before the first note plays at a concert, you're already in a heightened state. There's this buzz in the air as you wait. There's dimmed lights and the energy is just building. Your whole body is on alert. And when the music starts, it hits you on multiple levels at once. It's sound waves pounding in your chest, flashing lights that fill your vision, and vibrations that you feel in your bones. Maybe you can smell the venue and feel the hands and bodies around you. And psychologists call this multisensory integration, and it's hugely important for memory formation. Basically, the more senses involved in an experience, the stronger and more detailed the memory tends to be. But it's not just the sensory overload. There's also the emotional context. So when the band plays a song that means something deeply personal to you, it was maybe a breakup anthem that you played on repeat during a tough time. Maybe a song from your teenage years that shaped your identity, or just a track that reminds you of someone that you love. Your brain tags that moment with an emotional intensity that helps cement it. And neuroscientists have shown that the amygdala, which is the brain's emotional hub, it works closely with the hippocampus, which handles memory encoding. And when emotions run high, the amygdala boosts the hippocampus's ability to lock in memories, making them more vivid and easier to recall later. And then, of course, there's the novelty factor. A lot of our days do just tend to blend into one another, filled with routines and habits. But concerts, they often break that routine spectacularly. Maybe it's your first time in a new city, or a surprise guest walks on stage. You went for dinner with your friends before, or the band plays an unreleased track for the first time. These moments are unexpected and new, and novelty triggers a flow of dopamine. This dopamine release doesn't just feel good, it actually enhances the brain's ability to form and retain new memories. And that's why unusual or surprising events stick with us so much longer. For me personally, one of my most unforgettable concert experiences was seeing The Weeknd live. I honestly had waited my whole teenage life for it, and it finally happened in 2023. I went to 2 dates on his After Hours Till Dawn tour, and honestly, I can replay the whole thing like a movie in my mind. The set list, the visuals, the crowd energy, the way his voice sounded live, literally every light change, even like the lines at the merch booth. I had such an amazing time with my best friend at both dates. And yeah, what really amazes me is I can also replay gigs and festivals that I attended over 10 years ago with almost the same clarity. And that's the power of emotional, multisensory, and novel live music experiences combined with the brain's episodic memory system just doing its best work. And I'm so glad I can hold on to those memories. I really hope that I have them forever. So, next time you find yourself mentally revisiting a concert, remember you're not just being sentimental. It's your brain's way of preserving one of life's most emotionally rich and sensory intense experiences. And yeah, I hope that you get to relive that forever as well. And the last thing I want to touch on in today's episode is one of the most magical things about live music, I think, is how it invites us in, how it turns us from passive listeners into active participants. When you're at a concert and you start singing along to a chorus, chanting with the crowd, or clapping in rhythm, you're doing something profound. You're not just making noise, you're helping co-create the musical experience. And this act of participation, it gives you a real feeling of agency. A sense that you're influencing the moment and that you have control and presence in something bigger than yourself. And psychologically, this taps into a fundamental human need, the desire to feel effective in our environment. In the field of self-determination theory, which explores what drives motivation and well-being, feeling a sense of autonomy and competence is crucial. Singing along or chanting allows us to claim some of that autonomy. Even though we're in a large crowd, we're exercising our own voice and agency. And this is especially powerful because in many aspects of life, feeling heard or impactful can honestly be rare. But at a live show, your voice is literally shaping the soundscape. Think about those iconic moments in concerts where the crowd just takes over entirely. Like, you have thousands of voices just singing in unison. And these are collective rituals that empower the audience. It's like flipping the traditional performer-audience relationship on its head. The audience becomes the performer. And what's more, the sense of control and participation feeds back into the energy of the show. Performers often rely on audience interaction to gauge and amplify the atmosphere. So when the crowd sings louder or chants a band's name, it creates this kind of feedback loop that energizes the artists, who then feed back more energy to the crowd. It's this cycle, this flow of emotional and musical energy. It's like a dance between performer and audience, and it really wouldn't be possible without active participation. And even beyond concerts, this principle alone is why group singing in choirs or community music therapy sessions has such powerful psychological benefits. Like I've said previously in the episode, participating in music together reduces stress, enhances mood, and fosters this sense of deep social connection. The agency and shared creation experience in these moments are core to why music is such a fundamental part of human culture. So next time you find yourself belting out the lyrics at a show, just remember, you're not just enjoying the performance, you're actually helping to create it. And that feeling of control, connection, and contribution is one of the most powerful reasons that live music stays with us long after the show. But I think also it's important to remember that participation can look different for everyone. Not everyone loves to belt out lyrics or wave their hands in the air. And honestly, that's totally okay. Some people are quieter, more internal participants. They might be nodding along, closing their eyes to really feel the music, or just soaking in the atmosphere without making a sound. And even though their participation isn't vocal or overtly physical, that doesn't mean that they're any less connected. Internal engagement, so being mentally and emotionally present, is such a powerful form of participation in its own right. Music can move us deeply without us needing to make noise or motion. So whether you're singing at the top of your lungs or just quietly absorbing every note, just remember that you're still part of that shared musical moment and your presence matters. So to wrap up, what we've really uncovered today is that live music is so much more than just sound. It's this rich mix of emotion, connection, and memory. Our bodies, brains, and hearts, they can just come alive together in ways that recorded music simply can't replicate. It's this thrill of anticipation to the magic of singing alongside a bunch of strangers. It's the moments that become etched in our minds forever. And what I love about it is that live music reminds us why we're wired for connection. Now, before I end, I just want to leave you with a question to reflect on. What's one concert moment that you'll never forget, and why? Maybe it was a song that changed everything for you, a crowd chant that made you feel seen, or just the way that the night made you feel alive. I would absolutely love for you to share that with me over on Instagram or on Threads at the Sound Mind Talks. I'd love to hear your concert stories. I think every live event is such a magical experience. I wish that I could attend every single one, but hey, if you needed one more reason to buy those next concert tickets, this episode is it. Sorry, not sorry, but hey, this is the reinforcement from music psychologists that concerts are seriously good for your health, so maybe you should consider it. But yeah, that's all I have for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me today on The Sound Mind. If you've enjoyed this episode, please rate or review on wherever you're listening and share it with someone who loves music or gigs just as much as you do. Don't forget to follow us and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. But until next time, keep listening, keep reflecting, and I'll see you on The Sound Mind.